What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Great Men with Shane Sams. I am your host, Shane Sams, and I have a great man, a new friend, and we built a deep relationship very, very quickly. His name is Markus Gerszi. He's a former CrossFit affiliate owner who built and sold CrossFit Active Performance, which was voted the #1 CrossFit gym in Orange County multiple times. He's been coaching gym owners for 11 years and has worked with over 1,500 gym owners, over 10,000 hours working one-on-one. His podcast is Best Hour of the Day. I cannot wait to unpack that. His mission, to empower passionate gym owners to clarify their mission, fix their business strategy, and build systems to maximize their impact, their revenue, and make a great living doing what they love. Markus, my friend,
Yeah,
what's going
buddy.
on, man?
Excited to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
The last I saw you, we were deep into the midnight hours, 3 cigars in, talking about sales and life and everything else, man. What have you been doing since then?
Oh man, that was a great week, dude.
Dude,
Great week,
one of the
great
best.
conversations. Just you know what took all that excitement from great masterminds and a great conference with Dustin, and just been pounding the pavement since I've been back, man. Just integrating.
Me too, man. My problem is I'm too much of a visionary. And like when I left that place, I was like, I had like what I wanted great men to be, which was pretty big. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, we can go to another level, dude. And I think
Yeah,
that's what happens when you get around like just great dudes. Like the highlight for me was definitely, I mean, all the time we spent together at the mastermind and learning from each other, but also that cigar bar. One of the curious things, I don't know how this landed with you, like when we got to the cigar bar, me, you, Tom, Dustin, even Charles a little bit have been hanging out. And then I didn't even talk to Kirby. I didn't know who Kirby was. But it was crazy. Like as soon as he sat down, I was like, all right, this is one of our boys. This is just the way it is. Like, we all just kind of just started trading war stories, man.
yeah. So I think it's something about that environment, man. It was just the table was set for great conversation. There was great people there. Everyone's fired up about what they're doing, and
Yep.
yeah, spawned lots of great insights, especially
It's hard.
especially when we stayed late.
It's hard not to like people when you're smoking cigars with them.
Yeah,
That's what I've always
facts.
found, dude. I got into cigars, man, in 2020. Everybody had their pandemic hobby when you were trapped in your house. You know what I'm saying? And I was sitting there and I was flipping through YouTube and I saw somebody fire up a cigar. And I realized that I had never really learned anything in my adult life about cigars. And by the end of that YouTube university rabbit hole, I had 250 cigars heading my way. I had gear, I had everything. And then I'd been going on this mastermind for years, man. And I took a box with me just as an offering to the group. We've never not smoked cigars around that campfire since, man, because dudes don't shut up. And when you put a cigar in their mouth, they got to shut up for a minute. Let somebody else talk. So let me shut up. Let me practice what I preach and drink my own Kool-Aid here. All right, let's kick it off, man. I want to talk a little bit about CrossFit. I used to do CrossFit a little while. CrossFit is a culture. I think that's what I've always really admired about CrossFit. And you were able to build, one of the top CrossFit gyms in probably one of the biggest counties, in America. And it was very successful. But you walked away from that. Like you sold that. And for me, I've let go of a couple businesses. I've sold a business. That is a process, man. And most guys like just can't let go of what they were because they're tied up in that. So what was that decision like to step out of something successful? And what did it teach you about like a man's identity and success?
Great question. So the decision to sell the gym was really predicated on the fact that I had another business that was taking off like a rocket ship.
Mm,
And that was something that required and deserved my undivided attention. Now, on the other hand, I loved the gym. Truly was the kind of business where I loved my people. I loved what we did for people. I loved having a hub that I can go to in person. You know, so much of what I've done over the last 20 years has been virtual. And
mm,
that's great. There's so much power with what we can do online. And, that's amazing. And that other business was all online based, but this always gave me a place that I could go to. It was like my second home.
yeah,
I
for
built it
sure.
from the ground up. And like I said, I truly loved being there. But the opportunity cost was really what it came down to. And also, I had a business partner at the time who had some other opportunities and was at a place in his life where he was ready to get married and wanted to move out of state. And had some big changes coming his way. And he was very eager to move on from the business because for him, it was also something that he loved, but this other part of his life was more important to him at that time, which was great. And I completely supported that
Those dang women, they just come in and just,
every damn
you know
time.
what I'm saying? You realize every damn time. You know what I'm
And
saying?
yeah, oh, 100%. And he had that opportunity, and I had the other opportunity, which is going at full steam. And initially, my thought was, I'm going to hang on to this thing and just run it on the side.
Mm,
And that's when I had an offer I couldn't refuse come across my
mm.
desk, where I had a fan from one of the podcasts I was on who reached out and was trying to move to the US and was just fired up about what we'd built and was in a really good position to basically just write us a check
That's
and
awesome.
make it work. So it was one of those where it was an offer I couldn't turn down for multiple reasons.
Wow. That's pretty cool, man, because like, I remember when we sold our first business and it was like, it was the same thing. It was amazing financial windfall, straight cash, seven figures. Like it was like, okay, this is an absolute no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
And we had something else that was going, so it made it a little easier, but there was a big identity shift in ours because the day we signed the contract, the people weren't who they said they were. And we
Mm.
kind of realized that we handed our baby to the wrong person for the
Yeah.
for the right reasons. There's red flags in all the right places, right? But like it's cool that you had an experience where someone was coming with a love for the thing, was a fan of yours, and you could kind of do that. Was the transition pretty smooth, like when you handed it off?
I mean, yes and no. Funny you say that because that's actually exactly what happened with us as well.
Mm.
Guy looked great on paper. All of the initial meetings and all of the initial transition work seemed like this was going to be a slam dunk for him. And we had that business running on rails. It was, I mean, even after all these years of working with thousands of gyms all over the world, like the operational engine of this business was completely dialed. We even built a playbook on every single client and background. We coached him on not just how to run the business, grow the business, and all the obvious things, but even on the dynamic of the culture and how to, here are the key influencers within our community, and here's who and how to connect with them. We literally gave it to him on a silver platter, but after he took over, he bought it and kind of checked out, in a
Oh
in a
man.
really weird way. So I had a similar experience with then I watched my business that was so so rewarding, so successful, and something I loved so much start to take a nosedive for the next 18 months until eventually a group of the members actually got together and bought it off of him. And at that point,
Wow.
they recovered it. I coached them. These were all dear friends of mine at that point. And so we ended up getting it back online. And that was, yeah, it was a hell of an experience. But man, a lot of really powerful lessons that came
To-
from that.
totally, man. Like I often ask ourselves, like when we were in that thick of that, I can look back at it now and I can say, like, what did we gain? Like,
Mhm.
of course, we gained a huge amount of financial freedom, right? We were able to pay off our house and do all these different things. But then, like, we lost an identity. Like, it wasn't
Mhm.
like that was what we didn't have the language for 15 years ago to be able to describe that. But
Yeah.
like, we lost an identity. We lost this thing that we had created, and we were powerless. Like, it felt there was such this urge like to take it back and go swoop in and fix it and not let this thing get run into the ground, but it did kind of get ran into the ground. That business has been resold two or three times like
Mhm.
since then. When that happened, like how were you feeling during the decline, and then like even after you came back in and kind of resurrected it, like what did you lose anything in that whole process?
More than anything, it felt sad because for one, I
Mm,
didn't want to let it go, really. Again, on paper, great decision, right?
mm-hmm.
Financially and with the other business taking off like it was. And as soon as I stepped into that other business, full-time, undivided attention, it only accelerated our growth. So those theories for making the decision were confirmed. It was the right decision. However, it was disappointing to see this thing that I built, blood, sweat, and tears, because
Yeah,
this was one where it was me being there in person. And running a CrossFit gym well isn't just about great, sales, marketing, operations. It's really about people. And
totally.
so seeing this team of people and this community of members, really kind of suffer through this decline of quality and consistency, even though temporarily. And again, it was reinvigorated after some time, but that was really tough because
Yeah,
I was
man.
so excited about the opportunity in front of me. And at the same time, I had this like deep loss. It was this grieving that I really wasn't aware was going to come my way. It was
Yeah.
like I was grieving the death of this thing that I built,
It feels like a kid,
perceived
man.
death for sure. It
It
felt
feel
like
it
this,
feels like it.
it really felt like I was watching my baby, go down the toilet. And again, we pulled it back up, but that was a completely avoidable and unnecessary stretch of
Yeah.
time that I would have loved to have been able to prevent for all of those people. But, so is life. And, you,
Totally, dude. You got to
you,
do it. You don't know until you go, baby.
yeah. So,
Yeah, man.
but in hindsight, that was a really pivotal time for me because that was also me stepping into a much bigger project fully that I learned and grew more from than probably any other project in my journey,
Totally, man.
aside from the one I'm currently doing.
It's interesting you say that because like, people say that a lot. Like, I had to learn the lesson. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of lessons, but then
Hmm.
I see people make the same mistakes over and over. And like when we had the opportunity to sell another business later, there was people reaching out for it. It was definitely worth what we wanted to use some money. It was my business Flipped Lifestyle. And that was all of our identity, though, for like a decade. Like me, Shane and Jocelyn on a podcast, freaking going out, doing our thing. It got pretty big. And there was a moment where I was like, I had that on paper moment. I was like, I could use X dollars right now to do my next thing. This has kind of been a great thing. I'm glad it's helped a lot of people, but I'm ready to move on. And I was sitting there one night, and even Jocelyn asked me now, she's like, that's worth something. Do you still want to sell it? Like, whatever. And I decided not to, not from a lack of trust, but it's a leaning into agency. Like, this is something I can't risk because there's thousands of podcasts, hundreds of episodes, everything's out there. If someone comes in and blows this up, there's going to be ramifications to that on my reputation, right? But it was
Hmm.
back then when I'm a school teacher that was making $2,500 and somebody wants to give you 1.1 million, you're like, oh, where do I sign and how fast can the ink dry? you
Yes.
know. So I actually
Yeah.
played that forward a lot. I think that what you're talking about here too is like that discipline. That's where lessons really come into place. Like and CrossFit people, what I know about them, my home manager, Jen, CrossFit every morning at 5 a.m. I mean, she is relentless about showing up in like that community. She wakes up 4 a.m. She goes and trains at 5 a.m., train hard, lead hard. The hardest work you've ever seen anybody do like in a gym. I did it for like 2 or 3 years too. You would think that people like that who started gym, these incredibly disciplined men and the women you serve, would have that in business and life. But it's probably not the case because 1,500 people needed you to coach them to run their business. Like, where is that disconnect with those people that makes them even come to you in the first place?
Well, what I found is that so many people who wind up in this business, have a very similar story. And
Mm,
that story is, I found CrossFit. It changed my life profoundly. And I don't necessarily love what I'm doing, or I don't love what I'm doing as much as I love this thing. And they see an opportunity to get in business for themselves and do what they love and do for other people what someone did for them. That is the
mm,
most common through line. However, because this business model has a relatively low barrier to entry, given the license model that CrossFit offers and the just nature of what it takes to start small and build something. Most people can throw it on some credit cards or, take a little bit out of their 401k and they can get started. And that's really exciting for a lot of people because it doesn't take a long time. It doesn't take a lot of capital. And it's something they're deeply passionate and excited about. However, once they get into the business, they realize that the business or what they're going to spend the majority of their time doing isn't just fun part. Now you have to worry
mm.
about sales, marketing, operations, hiring, firing, training, and all the fun stuff that happens or needs to happen in order for a business to be successful. And those skill sets are for most people things that they haven't learned before. Entrepreneurship and the skills it takes to start, let alone build and grow and scale any business, let alone a CrossFit gym, It is a completely new set of skills that most of us don't have any experience doing.
Or any
And
clue, or have even heard of it. Like when you get
totally,
in there, things come up,
totally,
you're like, what are you talking about right now? I got to do this.
totally. And so what ends up happening is you have these people who are so excited, get into this business and paint themselves into a corner very quickly because they underestimated what it takes to actually run an operation successfully.
Yeah.
And the second piece I would add to this is that people have a fundamental misunderstanding of the business they're getting in,
Mm.
right? Most people think they're getting into the gym business. You're not actually getting into the gym business. You're getting into the hospitality business. If
Mm.
you play the game like you're trying to win the gym business game, you're going to lose. Because at the end of the day, what we're in the business of doing is providing an experience for people, right? It's no different than, say, a hotel or a restaurant, right? It isn't just about the food on the plate at the restaurant. It's about the building and the design and the service at the front desk and how people greet you and the lighting and the sound and the menu and all the things that go in around just what's served on the plate. And hiring those people and training those people and quality control and the refinement of the experience itself that so many people just do not understand when they first get into this game. And rightfully so. I really didn't either. I just happened to have a background in that line of work in the hospitality industry that
Oh, interesting.
transferred automatically for me. And so I intuitively was able to look at this business differently and find success much more quickly than most. But that aside, you wind up with someone who got in this business because they love it and they were excited about it. And next thing you know, they're grinding themselves down trying to figure out how to effectively put together a marketing campaign or how to systemize service and operations and retention and intentionally building perceived value for people so that they feel like what they're paying for is worth more than what they're actually paying so we don't have the churn issues. Again, if you're viewing this through hospitality, through the hospitality lens, that's going to be obvious. But if you're just
Mm.
thinking like, oh, I just need to train people and be nice, sure, that's a part of it, but that's not actually the strategy. That's not the game you're playing.
Yeah, so interesting, man. Like when you get into stuff like that, I love how your past skills transferred forward. Like I've always found that, like a lot, sometimes I'll coach people or I'll talk to people, like my friends who've been in the same kind of rut for a long time, and they get into this like sunk cost fallacy
Mm,
of, well, everything I want to change, I'll do something else, and everything I've done, I got to throw out the window. I don't. I'm going to go to a different career, so I don't get to use my degree. I got to do this and I got to do that. And like, but you were like, wait a minute, I'm recognizing something similar here. It's the pattern of hospitality, right? And like, I noticed that too when I was, because I was a school teacher for a long time. But when I got into coaching and speaking, especially, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is just, there's 4,000 adults instead of 40 juniors throwing spitballs at me, right? And then like when I got into podcasting really early, like when it first started out, like it wasn't like push a button and you can podcast to the world like it is now. And I
mhm.
was like, well, wait a minute. I was a football coach. I've edited video, I've edited audio. Like you transfer like these things forward. And then that recognition of, I think this is what gets people, this is true in like health, wealth, or relationships, is like you do something new, like you date someone new, or you go to start a new business, or you start doing something else. You got to go into it. You have no idea what you're doing. Like everything is different when you make any kind of change. And if you're not looking for the things that are different, even when you know it, like Great Men functionally is going to be a live event company. I have built live events since 2018, right? I've done retreats, I've done workshops, I've done stadium level event planning, like ballrooms, whatever you want to do. But this will be different because you suck at everything that you start new, right? And
Yeah.
then you get yourself in trouble because you're trying to fit things like into like a mold. Like when
Mhm.
you work with these people, one thing I really think that is one of my greatest things that I've taught myself as a coach and as a teacher is that I have to be coachable. And CrossFit people, I find, tend to think they know exactly what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like they get you the weight room, like this is the form, this is the technique, this is the whatever. Like they get their dogmas, right? Like
Mhm.
what do you look for in coachability? Because I think if a man is coachable, he can pretty much do anything and figure anything out. But
100%.
what are the ingredients of your most successful students who are coachable, and maybe the ones who you've had to fire or get rid of because they weren't doing what
Yeah.
you told them to?
Well, what we're really looking for at the beginning of the journey when people first reach out is, for one, we want to make sure that what we teach aligns with what they want. So it's getting them clear on what they actually want, which is actually usually a decent lift, because what tends to happen is that people start repeating the things that they hear in their industry that they're
Yep.
supposed to say about becoming successful.
Oh, it's so good, dude. So
And
true.
what we dig into is what really matters to you first. So before we talk about your goals for the business, we zoom in on them and we get clear on, hey man, like, what is it that you are trying to accomplish as an owner? As in, what do you want out of this deal personally? As in your income, your time in the business, your role within the business, your for you as an individual, personal growth, leadership, confidence, things like that. And we make sure that we're aligned on that front first. Because
Mm-hmm.
if I know that, and I can extract from this individual a clear picture of what success looks like, and that aligns with us, that's step one. And the reality is that once we get past a lot of that programming that happens from an industry, which we're all guilty to, right? It's whenever you're in an industry and you're in the forums and the chats and you go to events and all of this stuff, you listen to the podcasts, it's you're programmed to think a certain way. And in
All
some
you got's the gurus, baby. That's all you got when you're trying to figure it out, man. Until you break some
totally.
stuff and start rebuilding it.
And unfortunately, in our industry, for a long time, a lot of those individuals were misleading people.
Mm.
And, I don't necessarily think it was done in malice, but whether on purpose or not, what they were being told was the only way, was actually taking them away from what got them into the business in the first place, right?
Mm.
They fell in love with CrossFit in the group format, and that's what they fell in love with. And then a lot of these individuals are saying, "Hey, I know that you love this, but you can't actually build a business that way. You'll never make any money. There's no money in the group model. You have to do it my way," which is maybe a personal training centric approach, or more of a like physical therapist's perspective on training. And those all have their place. But we need to first make sure that I am clear on what you actually want out of this. And the truth is most of them want what they fell in love with in the first place. And that's
Mm.
specifically what we do. We don't do the PT centric approaches or the custom programming approach or the, physical therapy track. We really mastered that traditional group model
Mm.
and built the operating system that supports it and makes it wildly successful when you put those pillars in place. And
Sure.
so once we're clear on that, the next thing that we're looking for, obviously, is that coachability. And specifically, I'm trying to root out a victim mindset, because a
Mm.
victim mindset is going to keep you from being able to accept the gaps in your game, and is going to keep you from being truly coachable. Because if you're going to make excuses around why something doesn't work or why something's too hard and that this is all happening to me rather than for me, we're going to have a bigger problem down the road, because I can't change that inside of you. I can help guide
Yeah.
you, I can give you support. And yep, building a business is hard. It can be really fucking hard sometimes.
Really
But
fucking hard, dude.
and that's okay. That's part of the job, right? But we need to make sure that we are working with someone who is willing to be coached and willing to accept, like, hey, just because this is how I've done things in the past, I'm not getting the outcome that I want. I need to be willing to revisit those things and change my perspective and
Mm.
or my approach altogether
Mm.
on how I run or even view this business in order to be successful. So that's
Yeah.
the main criteria we're looking for.
Let's apply this a little bit toward men for a minute. You know what I'm saying?
Let's go.
Like, when I coach men or guys, I'm talking to them, and even just my friends, you know what I'm saying? I can sniff out a victim mindset almost immediately. Like, because the victim mindset is you've taken one of those assigned identities and programming and you've adopted it. right?
Mhm.
You've said to yourself, like, well, this happened. It's very deterministic, right? And you always know it because someone starts defending their victimhood. It's like, well, you want me to do this in my marriage and relationship, but I always do that in this, that, and the other. Or this is not
I've
how I
tried
learned
that.
it. I've tried that. I've done this. And then they've just accepted the programming, man. And like when I men are notorious for this too. Like, and men will fight, man. We'll fight over anything. We'll fight for our wives. We'll fight for our kids. You'll fight over your identity if you've really put the cape on, man. I was I was talking to me and my wife were. I'm just gonna get a little personal here. We were having a conversation this week where I was like, she was saying something to me, and I was saying something to her. And you ever had this moment where you're like, I don't think we're speaking the same language? You know what I'm saying, men out
Oh,
there?
that's never happened with my wife and I.
Never, right? You and your wife are just flawless communication all the time. But I realized that, wait a minute. Not only do we assign ourselves identities, but we're always trying to assign identities to other people. And I was like, baby, it's like I'm George Washington, but you've assigned me as Abraham Lincoln. And no matter how many times I say I'm going to chop down the cherry tree, all you're hearing is 4 score and 7 years ago. That's not even what I'm saying right now, right? But like, man, when you do it to yourself and you accept that assigned identity, you have no choice but to become a victim eventually because you've just trapped yourself in someone else's interpretation of what you are. And I think that's what you find with guys, especially like these gym owners or any business owner, is we will fight and die for our victimhood. How do you get through that for you? How do you avoid victimhood in your own life?
Oh, I've spent a lot of time and a lot of money doing a lot of work,
Yes, sir.
making sure I untangle some of those stories that
Mm,
I grew up with, right?
they're all
Because I
stories.
100%. And I think for business in particular, and this applies to anything else as well, but business is forced personal development.
Mm,
Because once you get in there, it's going to expose all of your shitty lenses and limiting beliefs and your bad relationship with money or whatever stories you grew up with, which for the record, most of us didn't choose those stories.
that's
The
right.
stories we kind of get stock default when we become an adult were
Yeah.
given to us by our parents, our culture, our teachers, the people we grew up around. And most people's stories are shitty stories.
Mm,
And so those are projected on us. We interpret those as reality. And what I found is that the stories we believe about ourselves and the world around us are what determine our reality.
mm,
And so we start off with this stock setting of stories. And it's up to us to then come to this point where we say, you know what? I don't like how those stories are shown are the outcome of those stories in my life, right? Like
mm.
for me personally, I grew up, my parents are immigrants from Austria and start off small service business owners. I'm first generation here, didn't speak English until I got dropped off at school. And I grew up around a lot of foreigners and a lot of people who came from places where things were really hard. And it was just about work hard, put your head down, make it happen, don't complain. And and bad money stories and all sorts of things, and that you have to go to college in order to be successful. I struggled in school because of again the support or lack thereof that I experienced growing up. And
Same.
so I created this identity, or this identity was created as an outcome of those circumstances that I found as I became an adult weren't getting me anywhere close to what I felt who I felt I wanted to be and what I wanted to accomplish. And
Right.
so there came a point where I'm like, this sucks. Like, why am
Mm,
I constantly bad with money? And why am I, chasing girls and not wanting to get into a relationship and all the things that show up, right? And I luckily enough was introduced to a now dear friend of mine, Mark England, who does story work. And he created this incredible system through a company called Enlifted. I encourage anyone who wants to untangle these stories, check them out. They are next level, truly best in class. And he started to introduce me to this concept that, hey, you know what? Just because those are the stories that you are living off of now doesn't mean those have to be the stories that you keep. You get to
mm.
you get to rewrite your identity and you get to pick who you want to be.
It's
And
amazing.
I started on that process, and it was a wild journey, man, because you don't realize what you've got back there, secondary, tertiary kind of layers beneath.
Oh, it's
Because
infinite, man, when you
right,
start
because
digging down, dude.
the stories we tell or the way that we present ourselves is one thing, but what's going on between our ears and subconsciously is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
And so we just started to unpack and unravel those stories one by one. And it was,
Takes
several
work.
years. Oh,
Takes work, bro.
and it wasn't easy, but every single time, every single little story, bigger story that I untangled, I felt like I got a step closer to who I felt like I was all along.
I think that's so interesting the way you say that. It's made me think of my journey and like, like when I became a podcaster, I didn't know I was becoming a storyteller. Like I needed, and then when I became a speaker and I'm on stage in front of thousands of people, like the craft of story, right? But you can get down deep into a story and craft it. But then when you live it every day and you hear it every day for your entire first 20 years of your life, it just embeds inside of you. And then I've talked about this on the podcast before, but what really changed me, the thing that broke me free from a lot of those old stories was this book called The Courage to Be Disliked. And it's a book based on the work of a guy named Alfred Adler. And he had a great revelation in psychology that it's a little controversial, but he says there's no such thing as trauma. And don't start. Last time I said this out loud, I got like five people tell me, "You don't know my trauma." I get you. I get it. You had
You're
some
gonna get
happen to
some
you.
nasty emails.
I know. I get it. I get something bad happened. So what Adler discovered was like it was basically based around memory. Like this is what gave him the revelation is like you can't remember what you did at 3 p.m. yesterday with any detail. There's always going to be some kind of gap because we don't keep all the information. You go back 2 years, 80% at best. You go back 20 years, 20% at best. So even the stories you were handed were given to you and remembered in an incomplete way, and you filled in the gaps of those stories. So for me, the revelation was the stories aren't even true. Like they're not. They're just not 100% true. So when you get handed these things that you've adopted from other people, you get to question them, right? Like one of the stories I was always told growing up is your dad never misses a ball game. Your dad builds his whole life to never miss a ball game with the kids. And like that's the sign of being a present good dad. You know what I'm saying? And when I get into my kids being born, I'm like, oh my God, I can never miss a ball game. I can never do anything else. I don't love my kids if I miss anything they ever do, period. Right. And I built a life around that, man. I built a life around taking my kids to school, picking them up after school, never missing a ball game. But then like when the opportunities came to be like, hey, you could go speak, you could go impact thousands of people every Saturday. You could do this, you could do that. And then I started looking at that and I was like, well, let me look at this mentality. So I went to my brother and he was like, yeah, man, you can't miss ball games. Dude, you can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to make a lot more money and I'm going to impact more people and I'm going to give my kids a better life. And he's like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, and so I started questioning that. And finally I was like, wait a minute. Like, I love my kids. I'm doing what I think is best for them. And also, I'm kind of like, what are the benefits of me going out? I'm robbing them of some independence. Like, I'm going to be there for all the milestones. I'm going to be there for the important stuff. And, but that random girls' game on a Thursday night that you're being forced to cheer at, Anna Joe, I might not be there. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's got to be some like give there. And little chipping away at it moment by moment was like, I get to decide what the story actually means. You know what I'm saying? Like
Absolutely.
this, I get to decide the benefits, the challenges, and the possibilities from that. And I don't, man, I don't trust myself sometimes. Not trust myself like to take action. When I feel something, that first feeling as a man, I'm like, hold on, I honor that. Something's making me feel guilty here, like about missing a ball game. So then I look at that and I'm like, why do I feel guilty? Well, because the story of our family was the ultimate epitome of what being a great dad man was, never missing a ball game. So your whole life has to be built around that. Like, okay, that's a story. What is the alternative story that I feel like is more true to me? It's, hey, I want my kids to have more independence than I have. I want them to have more things. And also this opportunity is great for me and your mom, and we're going to be around together a lot longer than I'm going to be with you because you're going to go marry somebody else and leave anyway, right? Like all these little things that I got to work through to build a new story. But then don't fall in love with that story, guys, because I don't know about you, Marcus, but about every 5 years, 7 years, I get bored and I want to do something completely different. And if I'm attached to even that new story I make, it can hold me back. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%, man. We are meaning making machines.
Yes.
And that meaning that we were given for that kind of default story growing up is something that, like you said, you really you have to take the opportunity when those feelings come up because the feelings are real,
The
right?
feelings are real for sure.
And then we get to keyword get to we get to decide whether that's what it means to us or not. And I think
Mm,
that's a key part of the process. And that way we can then start to redefine the meaning based on what we want and what we believe, based on where we are and the information we have now. But
mm,
like you said, it's a moving target, right?
yeah.
Those goalposts don't stay. Every few
Yeah.
years, they move. And if we don't check back in with ourselves to make sure that what we believe is our mission and our framework for decision making, our values, all of that. Some of those will carry through, but some will evolve, right? Like
Mm,
my value set before I was a father was very different than what it was when I became a father. And now my kids are 11 and 8 years old. They have evolved numerous times because the assignment is evolving, right?
yeah,
My
man.
life is evolving. My desires, my needs are evolving.
Mm,
And so it's something we get to keep checking in on. And I find that the more frequently we can do that, the better off we're going to be. And I'm not saying you need to be in this perpetual loop of I'm trying to fix myself. That's not what this is at all.
no,
I
no, no,
think
no.
that's
That
a nasty cycle a lot of people
that's
find
another
themselves in.
version of victimhood is when you
Totally.
fall in love with all the problems that you find
Yeah.
and you don't ask yourself honestly if you need to do something about it. That's just more
Yeah.
victimhood.
I think there's an initial cleanup, right? Like an initial resetting of the table
Yeah.
that we get to do that starts this journey. And just know going into it that you will continue to need to do that in order to stay current and
Mm,
aligned with where you are now.
yeah. I plan 2 good retreats a year where I go think about this. And I've got a buddy named Grant Baldwin, and he has an amazing philosophy in life that everybody wants to set like 5 year goals and things like that. And aim and projection is a very good thing, especially for men. If men aren't aimed at something, they will turn inward and self-destruct. Like you have to be aimed at something, but you can only really predict. For me, I can only predict like 3 months out. I can kind of vaguely tell you where we're going to be at in a year. And Grant always says, "Don't worry, you can drive 1,000 miles in the dark with your headlights." Because that's really all that we have is like what we're aimed at, where we're going, and what we're moving toward next. But some dudes are still aiming at this false thing they were given them. Like I was told, go to school and be a school teacher because you'll always have a job. And but when my core being is all about novelty. Like I love meeting new people. I love being out and trying new things. I have had a new business. It feels like every 5 years since I started being an entrepreneur. And here I am at 29 years old, sitting in a classroom where I'm not even allowed to go to the bathroom unless the bell rings. And
Mhm.
I know my salary schedule for the next 32 years. It's the most predictable thing I could ever be in. But it was someone else's goal for my life. And it was a good goal. My dad wanted me to do that because he's like, he wanted me to be okay. He wanted me to be able to provide for myself. And that was a stable job. And he was an entrepreneur. So he knew exactly what instability looked like. So he
Yeah,
talked me out of it in his own fears because he didn't want me to go through the things that entrepreneurs go through. It's out of love. These stories, it's not like people are doing things to you.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. If you're bitching about your parents, grow up. Like your parents had parents and they screwed them up. And then you love your grandparents, but you don't realize they screwed them up that made you get in this mess in the first place. Break this freaking cycle, dude. But when you
Yeah.
start choosing your identity too, man, it's like it's hard because because once you realize it, you're like, oh shit, I have to be responsible and accountable for my own future. Oh, this is lame, dude. And a lot of people, a lot of dudes just default right back into the patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that the blaming your parents thing is
Ugh, I hate it.
just an ugly cycle. And I think that you initially, when you go through that discovery process and go through those stories, like I'm not sure it's avoidable temporarily, where
Yeah.
you're frustrated and you're like, man, this made things a lot harder. But the
Again, the
reframe,
feelings are valid.
100%.
Honor
But
them,
they
feel
did
them.
the best they could with what
Yes.
they knew and what they had.
Hmm.
And if you can accept that and realize, like, yeah, that story sucks for who I want to be, but they were basing it off of their life experience, which was at a different time, right?
Yeah.
This is why I referenced, like, my parents were immigrants, they were raised by parents in the wars. And so there was a lot of scarcity and it was a lot about security and,
Mm.
follow the beaten path rather than go out and try to figure it out. Even though they always encouraged me to go and be in business for myself, it was still like this blended nebulous idea of, like, we'll go to school and do the thing that we didn't do because we know that that's how you become successful, but also, like, go and do something for yourself. And it just left me very confused. And at
Yeah.
first it was really frustrating for me when I started putting the pieces together. And you're like, oh, why didn't you give me this or say it like this? And we can go through that phase, but it's very important to strive to get to the point to where you realize, like, okay, they did the best they can. There's literally zero value in pushing blame, and instead
Yeah.
say, this was the tool set I was given. This was the best one they had. They gave that to me. And shortcomings and blessings all together, right? Some of them are really good and really powerful. Some of them were not so great.
Mm.
But the point is that that's what I'm starting with. And I get to use those to my advantage. Here's
Yeah.
the truth. Those were all gifts.
Yeah, they
Every
were.
one of those shitty stories that I thought made my life harder are exactly what made me successful in becoming who I wanted to be.
Yeah,
They were
man. That's a
all
freaking mic
blessings
drop,
in
dude.
disguise.
Yeah,
And
man.
the same thing is true for the journey we're on, as whether an entrepreneur or whatever your path is. All those hard times when that business fails, or that you lose that job, or you don't get the deal and you're devastated, and or you're financially screwed, fill in the blank with whatever terrible scenario we went through, right? I went through plenty of them, all of the above. And at first, you're woe is me, and this sucks, and you're in the pain cave, and you got to figure your life back out. And this,
The pancake.
the path I thought I was on was is now gone. And how am I supposed to support my kids and do the things? But the bigger the pile of shit, the bigger the blessing,
Mm.
the bigger the gift. They're all gifts.
Mm.
Every one of those is a gift for you to not be a victim to, but instead say, this was a gift that the universe gave me to become that person.
Mm.
Because if
That's a good
I
word,
work
dude.
through that, I get the gift, I get the power that used to take away from me. I now own that power.
Yeah, man. I've heard it said too, like, like there are no competent people. There are people that become competent through failures. And there's no fearless people. There are people who are deathly afraid, but they're brave enough to like do it anyway. And like, I look back at my journey, man, and like, I had a pretty good football career, dude. I decided I was going to be a football coach. That was my first breaking free. I kind of worked for my dad a little while. I got into school, but like I coached college football. I was on like a Big East championship team. I was at a high school that went to a state championship. I became a head coach at 26. I think I was the second youngest coach either that year or ever in the state of Kentucky, like whatever. But in the moment, it was the pain cave. I love that saying. I'm going to use that from now on, the pain cave. I went 0 and 10 my first year as a head coach. I came in with so much hype, dude, and I was hyping everybody up, getting the whole community rallied up. And we didn't just go 0 and 10. We got beat like 70-0 the first 8 games. I mean, just the most losing you can do ever. And I remember laying in bed one night. I'll never forget this. And I was like, Jocelyn, I just maybe I suck. Right. And she was like, no. She's like, it's your first year as a head coach. Yes, you did these other things, but like you started over. You're doing something new. The
New skill
school's not
set.
very, very good. I look back at that all the time and I'm like, I've been 0 and 10. You can't hurt me. I don't care. I can lose everything. I've been 0 and 10. I know exactly what that feels like. And it just creates so much courage. As you sell a business, start a new one, it works. You start a second business and you start it and it works. You start one and it fails miserably and throws you into a depression and makes you ask yourself, why am I even here? Like it makes you better and it builds you stronger and it lets you go like to the next level, man. That's so good, dude. The problem with chosen identity, and this is something I'm struggling with a little bit right now, is because I'm like you, man. I do the work, dude. I go to therapy. I go to retreats. I talk to dudes like you who are like, "Hey, man, let's hold ourselves accountable here and figure out how we can grow." But as you evolve into a chosen identity, especially when you've always lived in the assigned identity, you know you've changed and you know who you want to be, but all those other people, they still have that same picture of Marcus in their brain, right? The guy that
Yeah.
hadn't seen you in a couple years, he only knows you as he knew you. Like, how have you dealt with that through your career and it just as a man? Like when, because you've really stepped out, you're doing your own thing. Like, I'm sure there was resistance from family, from friends, from old groups that got you to where you were, and now you're moving like past them or beyond them, or not in a better way, but just in a different way. Like, how do you deal with that when you kind of do the reinvention side?
Man, that was a great question, but that was a really tough realization
Mm,
because I grew up with this incredible group of friends and my brother, and we all grew up together since we were little kids. And these were and still are my boys. And there was a period where I had to make the decision to remove myself to a certain degree
yeah,
and accept the gruff I was going to get for that.
yeah,
And there was a lot of resistance, particularly there. You know, my family was always very supportive, even though they operated from a different frame. They always had a confidence that I would figure it out. So that it wasn't so much there. It was
mm,
really more in my social circles that I felt that.
mm,
And there's a lot of friends that, you know, the depth of those relationships had to change and
mm,
the amount of interaction because if you hang around with people who see you a certain way that no longer aligns with who you are and or are trying to be, it's a massive anchor. It's like dragging an anchor forward.
oh yeah, and social pressure is so hard because we are hardwired to belong and need community.
Absolutely.
When you're moving away from an old community or you're limiting them, I don't believe in no contact and all that bullshit unless somebody's hurting somebody. But like when you limit that, they feel it, and then you feel it big time.
Course. And
Yeah,
they were my core support group. I mean, these are the people that I literally grew up with and
same.
shaped my identity around.
Yeah,
That's how I knew who I was because of how I was seen in that circle, right? And breaking away from that because I was really the first and only one in my group that took the entrepreneurial path. They all went a more traditional path. They went to school, got their jobs, and were doing way better than I was way sooner. And so it was a lot of like, what are you doing? Like, you're just wasting your time. You're wasting potential. And there was a lot of pushback and a lot of resistance.
mm,
It took a very long time and a lot of intentionality to break that. And
mm.
things have evolved now, and those we're all much older than we were in our early 20s when everyone's very opinionated and feels very right
They
about
got
their
their stories,
perspective.
baby. They got their stories.
Right, they were knee deep in those stories, and a lot of that has evolved. But
Yeah.
it's not just about the career path, and it was about how my wife and I decided to from the very beginning, before we even had kids, that she was going to be stay at home and I was going to be the sole provider, and
Mm,
then that we homeschool our kids, and that we're just not taking the traditional path anywhere. And
mm.
every one of those big decisions where I took the other path in the fork in the road was met with resistance.
Yeah, man.
And, at first I took it personally. And
Totally.
it was really tough for me because, again, this is my family. And I had the opportunity to grow a thicker skin and also still be able to show up in that group. And rather than taking the jokes poorly or personally, just realizing that it's like, well, you have a completely different perspective. And I wouldn't expect you to see things the way I see things because we've had radically different paths.
Yeah.
And I've chosen a different one for myself. And yeah, it was harder and it took longer for me to calibrate and to learn the skills and to apply them in a way that actually got results and started building a life the life that I had envisioned. But there was a lot of resistance, man. And I would say that's probably the hardest part, aside from you just
It
facing
is.
your own BS.
Yeah, man.
It's then once you've made the decision, you realize there's probably no one, or at least very few people who support this completely different version of yourself. And sometimes you have to make hard choices. And I had to take some time where I really limited my exposure to a lot of these people that I cared a lot about, whose opinions I had respected for my entire life, and go through this evolution of I don't take those opinions personally. And
Yeah.
I am confident in my path and in my decisions. And I think again, that's part of the growth. For me, at
Yeah.
least personally, I realized that I had a big like people pleaser part of my identity
Guilty
where
as charged.
I didn't want to be disliked by my friends or have my friends, talking shit when we're hanging out and giving me a hard time about my like very intentional decisions about how I'm going to support my family or how I'm going to raise my kids and my health and fitness and how I prioritize some things. And I don't want to go out and black out and party every night like we did when we were young. And that took a lot of time and it took a lot of work, but I ended
It's
up in a
culture, man.
place.
You know, it's
Yeah, but
culture, dude.
for sure. But it got me to a place where it truly made me proud of what I built because as they started to grow and have families and life happens and things don't go the way they had predicted they would and whatever variation of that, the different paths it can be, there was a bit of coming around on their part too and
Yeah.
supporting like, oh, well, now you're doing good. Like, well, yeah, easy for you to say. It's,
Right. You didn't see what happened to get here. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
thanks for
Dude,
all the support along the way, but that's life. That's the journey, right? You can't
I think you
expect
can
people to understand
yeah,
your
man.
unique view and your values when you don't have any evidence yet.
Yeah.
I only had evidence in my heart. I
And
didn't
they
have
have all the evidence because that's what's worked for them. Like these
100%.
people, they have all the evidence in their corner.
And
So
they're
like it makes
intentionally
sense.
trying to set you up for success. It's because they love me. It's because they wanted me to not struggle and have an easier path that they were putting this on me, right? And in hindsight, again, I'm actually grateful for it because
Mm,
those times were the times that I grew the most. When I
yeah.
decided, no, I believe in who I am and what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep pushing. And then when the evidence did start to stack up that I've got a great relationship with my wife, I've got great relationship with my kids, I'm successful in business, I do something that I truly love for people that I want to support and provide value, and I'm able to do that. It came full circle.
Yeah. I think it's this is something that I've recently realized is that groups have an immune system that protects the worldview of the group. And, some of it is, giving you shit, but then some of it becomes this fear. Like if he makes it, what does that say about this worldview? If something else
That's exactly
happens,
right.
what does it say about me? And I realized that it was about them. This happened to me when we became known, when we got featured in Forbes in like 2013, right? And it was like 500,000 views in like a month or something like that. And then our podcast got big, and of course we're becoming more active on social media and talking about what we're doing. It was so crazy, man. Like my three best friends from college rabidly turned on me. It was like an immune system response. They started posting like this crazy shit on all of my content, like on my business page. And like I even reached out to him and I was like, "Hey guys, like what are you doing? Like if you want to talk shit to me, like let's tell me. Like tell me if you think I'm off base. I respect your, I like you guys. You're my boys." And they just I mean everything I would post, they would be like, "Oh, he says he's doing this, but he was really this guy back in 2001." Or it's freaking 20 years later almost. You know what I'm saying? And like they're just posting and posting and posting, and I had to just block every one of them and cut them completely out of my life for a while. I've come back around to a couple of them now because that same thing, the evidence stacks up, man. Eventually they're like, dude, that's pretty wild. Like one guy that was the most rabid about 5 or 6 years later, I get a message from him out of the blue and he's asking me advice about starting a business. And I'm like it's kind of like nothing ever happened. But it was the same thing with my family. Like when I quit my job, Oh my God. My fam, because nobody, everybody, all of my brothers and stuff have 9 to 5s, you know, pretty much, right? Like my one brother owns an agency, but he works with other companies and stuff for insurance. But like, it was just this rabid response of, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? My mom cornered me in her kitchen and told me I was completely irresponsible. I was not being a good father and a good husband because I wasn't thinking about insurance and that good stable job I had. And she was just so mad at me. She came around, of course, you know what I'm saying? But dang, dude, when your family and your best friends from college just freaking all turn on you at once, there was a moment where I was like, Jocelyn, maybe we shouldn't be on social media. Maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we shouldn't podcast. Maybe we should just try to find another way like to do this. But then I asked myself a question. I was like, those guys haven't been in my life in 10 years and they only showed up to stop me. Like, it's not like they put any sandwiches on my table. It's not like they're the guys I called for advice. They were great friends. We freaking dominated in flag football. We freaking lived in the same dorm. But that was a hard thing to, but you know what was amazing about that? I'll tell you where that came full circle, Marcus. In 2020, my son was being, when everybody was home playing, they were playing games with their friends, right? And he had these friends were just ruthlessly, it was beyond, it was the bullying is where it ended up being. And I said, Isaac, it'll be very lonely for a while, and I know that we're all at home right now, but you have the power to block those guys and not play with them. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And my son, who's like 13 maybe at the time, I remember exactly how old he was. Very, let's see, it's 2020. He was born in 20. He's about 12. He did it, and it was hard. It was really, really hard. But you know, I played with him. I spent a lot of time with him. Once the world opened back up, we got back in school. He makes a whole new group of friends, and they become his bros. They're the guys that accept him who he is, talk to him. They give him shit because your best friends will give you shit to your face and never let anyone talk shit about you behind your back.
That's
But
right.
like you know what I'm saying? But he did that. But I don't think I could have. I don't think I could have helped him through that if I had not actually like been through that process. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I
Yeah.
imagine that was really hard for you as a dad,
Oh,
seeing that, right?
yeah.
Knowing what that feels like. But again, it was a gift for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not only did it help you on your journey, but then when the situation presented itself as a father, you had a
Yeah.
tool to
Yeah,
help
man.
him.
And Isaac don't take shit from nobody now either, man. He's 17. He's 6 foot tall, 210 pounds, and he's like, "Yeah, stop being an idiot. I'm going to cut you out of my life." Let's talk about culture. Let's spit it back out. Oh, that's good shit, man. That's good stuff, dude. The culture thing, like CrossFit, is a culture. That's another thing that's powerful, like about it. And we know what culture we grew up in, how it affects us, and we try to like break free from that. But then like every gym is its own culture. There's a big
Mhm.
culture that you're in, then each gym has its own flavor. I've been to a bunch of CrossFit gyms. Like, what do you think are the ingredients, you know, as men build their own communities and cultures, as they step out on their own, they're looking for where they want to plug in at, like what are the ingredients for a healthy community and like a healthy culture, like a CrossFit space where nobody really wants to leave? Like this goes back to your best hour of the day. That's one of the best taglines I've ever seen for a business, dude, because like you're giving someone the best hour of the day. Like, how do you create that to make that culture strong and make somebody want to be in that community and not let them leave it?
I think that the whole culture thing in CrossFit is a side effect of people doing hard things together and overcoming them together.
Mm,
And so I think that can happen anywhere. I think, or I imagine that in the groups and the events that you do with great men and a lot of the things that you share that you want to do, that you will have a similar effect because this is where we're all getting together and we're addressing the real hard thing. We're actually pushing up against our limits, right? And in CrossFit, it's you're in a group environment, you're doing physical training that is stretching you to your maximum. Not always, but it's always relative, but
a lot.
right?
Yeah.
It's it's not just from like weight or from volume and just how hard the training is, but you're progressing in complexity. You're having to learn new movements that, hey, I was here and now to keep moving down this track, I have to learn a whole new iteration of that movement pattern or whatnot. And it's that growth in front of people that
Mm,
I think makes it so powerful. So I think that's the core, the kernel, if you will, of what makes it so powerful in that environment. What I
Yeah.
think determines the individual cultures is that it's a reflection of the owner's values and how
Mm.
they show up, right? Some gyms have a culture where there's drama and there's cliques and, people are, it may be welcoming, but at the same time, it's like, oh, well, I'm not part of the cool kids group. That is a side effect of how the owner operates and conducts themselves socially, right? And keep in mind, inside of the gym, there's really three levels. There's the ownership, right? So the people who run the place. Then there's the coaches who are actually facilitating the classes, of which the owner is usually a part of that team. At first, it's usually just the owner, and then they start bringing other people on. And then you have the members. And the community, the culture is going to be determined either by the leader of that group, as in the owner and how they influence their team, or it's going to be from the members leading the community because the owner's weak and
Mm.
doesn't have firm values or clear standards about how we want this to run. And in a healthy culture, it's dictated by the owner and they lead by example and they've got really clear values and standards and they hold their team to those standards and those expectations so that they are a reflection of the owner's view and therefore then they disseminate that inside of the community and therefore they set the tone. That's the
Mm.
healthy way for it to go. The
Right.
unhealthy way is when the members are dictating it, and because the owner is maybe a bit of a pushover, has a hard time saying no, people pleaser, it just hasn't like found their identity. They're not strong in their identity. Now you've got a situation where the tail's wagging the dog.
Yeah.
And
The
this is
the prisoners are running the asylum.
totally right. And again, this is not just unique to CrossFit. This is going to be anywhere that you have a strong culture like this. But these are really like vivid microcosms of that scenario where done right, it's the most incredible thing because you're
Yeah.
you're part of this group of people where everyone is supporting each other and we're all holding each other to the highest standards. And if you think you can't, hey, we got you, we'll support you. If you fall down, we'll help you get back up. If you're having a hard time, we're going to get you through it. Let's get back on the horse. It's the most beautiful thing, right? And in the unhealthy cultures, you feel like you're part of a high school again, right?
Mm.
You're where it's just like people gossip and it's clicky and there's the cool kids and then there's the ones who, are kind of the outcasts. And what we try to do inside of Best Hour of Their Day in Affiliate University, which is the program that we take people through, it's about helping that owner step into that identity and get really clear about who they are and what they want and what those standards are within their community. And then helping make sure that that business is a reflection of that. Because that's at the
Interesting.
end of the day what it always is.
Yeah,
It's
man.
just a reflection of where the owner's at.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Like I'll tell you one, I think what I look for in any group that I find myself in, and I put myself into a lot of different groups on purpose, like because I want to nomad, I want to go out, I want to see what everybody's got going on, and like the I'll take CrossFit as an example. I did CrossFit for about 4 years, maybe. I think I did it for like 3 or 4 years, something like that. Went to multiple gyms, right? And I noticed that the strongest groups were where everyone celebrated each other's achievements
Yep.
and the weakest groups, which were often top down from the leader, was where they were either jealous of someone else hitting a PR or something, or that's where it was. It was just they wanted it. They were in it for them, right? Making that happen. This happened to me too in the business world. I may be talking shit in public here, but I'm going to do it. I was pretty deep into ClickFunnels when it first came out, and I love Russell Brunson's materials. I love his stuff. He's amazing. He's a genius when it comes to marketing. So I started going up the groups, and I ended up at ClickFunnels headquarters, and I'm at this big hackathon thing, and I'm there for 3 days with like all these people, and I had started switching my stuff over to ClickFunnels, and this, that was the other. But when I got in that room, here's what I found. I didn't find people celebrating each other's achievements. I found ruthless competition to become a part of a pecking order. And I found people who would go up there and say, "Man, I did this thing," and I'm sitting there going, "Like, that's amazing, dude! I want to do something like that. That's so cool." And then other people were like, "God, so pissed off that wasn't me on that stage, pissing." I mean, literally, these are words coming from people who I knew from the online world, And it literally made me switch to Kajabi and change my whole business on the back end because I was like, this culture didn't feel good. And I'm not trying to talk smack if you use ClickFunnels or whatever, but like you can feel it, man. And like if you're creating community, you need to create that from day one. Like Tom and Austin's freaking community. Dude, that's the only place I go speak for free because like I just love being in that room because it's a bunch of good people who are lifting each other up. We in our hot seats that we talk to people, dude, there's people doing millions and millions. There's people like I'm making $2,000 a month. What am I doing here? You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
but everything was just so in service and good. And that's a direct reflection of Austin and Tom, like
Yep.
like down the chain. And I think that men, this is something I see missing in men's life is we also need this not just in business, not just at our gym, not just wherever, but like dude, you need a text thread with six dudes where the culture is elevated and they're lifting you up and they're holding you accountable for your visions and decisions, but they're not trying to like stop you or tell you that you're dumb because they haven't reached like that level yet. My group, we've been at different income levels 10 different times in 10 our career. Like some one year, one guy's dropping bombs and crushing everything. Then the next year, his whole business falls apart and something else is happening there. But it's the same. It's not even giving each other advice. That's not what I'm talking about here. It's just dudes in your life who are for you and like not for what they think you should be. They're actually for you and like who you want to be. And I would guess that you've kind of found this something similar in your life because like you've built businesses, you've coached thousands of people, you've watched men win, you've probably watched some of these gyms collapse, maybe even under the weight of their own like success. But like as you've worked with so many people and you've done all these things and you've really landed in a good identity for yourself, like how do you define like being a great man? Like what is not the metrics, like the real Marcus? Like what does greatness in your life look like?
Cool. That's a deep question, man.
That's what we do
Um,
here.
no kidding. You know, I think what it comes down to is values and integrity. I
Mm,
think it's getting really clear about what you stand for, what you don't stand for, and then staying in alignment with that because you're going to
mm,
get challenged. You're going to find yourself in situations where you're like, man, it sure would be a lot easier, a lot more fun, or a lot less friction to do it this other way and kind of bend on my values and what I stand for or believe in. And I think that great men are forged by getting really clear on what you believe in and then standing up for that regardless of the
mm.
situation.
There you go.
And at the end of the day, it's about you leading by example for you.
Oh, dude, that was good. You leading for example, self leadership, so that you are standing for what you actually believe in. I think that's why people get so bitter. Like like, but when people, you know, how people like will defend a politician or they'll defend a party or they'll defend their particular denomination's creed that hangs on their wall or whatever. I think it's frustration because they're like, I don't even believe half of this, but I'm fighting for it because it's all I got. Instead of
Right.
just getting really clear on the capital YOU. Well, listen, man, we've only known each other for a short time, guy, but me and Marcus, but we hit it off when we were hanging out. And dude, I just love everything you're doing, man. I respect your worldview. I respect everything that you're building. And you're a great man, Marcus. And man, I cannot wait to see like all the different things that happen next. And I just want to thank you too, man. Appreciate it for having coming in these deep questions and sharing your perspective out with all the men listening to the podcast, man.
Well, thank you for having me on, Shane. And feelings mutual. Really excited for all that's ahead for you. And let me know how I can support you along the way.
Yep. And for anybody out there that wants to look up more, we might have some CrossFit gym owners listening to this. Where can they find Marcus online?
Yeah, check us out. Besthouroftheirday.com is the website, but you can find us on Instagram with that same handle, YouTube, same handle. And that's where you'll find me.
All right, guys, that wraps up my amazing conversation with Marcus Gerszi. Got to spend 3 days with Marcus a couple weeks ago, and boy, he's a real one. I mean, he is a real one. Just even if you're not in the CrossFit space, I would highly recommend that you follow anything he's doing. He is a wealth of experience and wisdom, and I think he is a prototype for guys out there who are living a good life, but it's not good enough and they want to build greatness on their own terms. So make sure you follow him on social media. Go look him up on podcasts, listen to him everywhere, and check out what Markus is doing. And maybe you want to hang out with Markus sometime in person. Markus is a guy that will be at our Great Men retreats. He's a guy that we're going to be including in our community. And make sure you're a part of that as well. You can find out everything we're doing at the Great Men Project over at greatmen.org. You can check out the podcast if you haven't done it yet and you like what we're doing here. Please, as soon as this is over, hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, and go leave us a 5-star review if you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out. If you want to hang out with me anywhere else online, you can go follow me at Substack. I write articles every single week where I go deep into my own thoughts about what greatness looks like for a man on his own terms. You can find me on Substack at substack.com/@Shane Sams. And if you just want to connect personally, you want to send me a message, just see what I'm doing when I'm running around every single day, you can follow me over on Instagram. That is at Shane Sams Creates. All right. So those are the 3 places I hang out. You want to hang out with me and my boys on the podcast here. We're going to be doing it every single week on Great Men with Shane Sams. If you want to go deeper with me and explore some of these thoughts and concepts, I usually get ideas from these shows and I go write articles about them over on Substack. And if you just want to connect with me personally, reach out, send me a message, whatever it is, you can do that on Instagram. That is all the time we've got for this week. Stop living a good enough life. The world made you a good man, but you can make yourself great on your own terms. Decide what that looks like and go get it. We'll see you next week.